This little kitchen timer that I bought on Amazon for $16 has easily been one of the cheapest and most important purchases that I have made for my business in the last 2 years. I've been using it nearly every day since I first got it, and today I just want to talk about why I use a timer in my work to begin with, and maybe even more importantly, why I'm using a physical timer like this as opposed to an app on my phone or my computer. So, to kind of kick things off, let's just talk about how I'm implementing it in my work. And it's really simple. I just use this to set 20-minute blocks of time for myself to work within throughout a given workday. If you've heard of the Pomodoro technique, I'm obviously borrowing very heavily from that, essentially just using a timer to take a big day and break it up into smaller milestones throughout a day. Now, I specifically use 20-minute increments for two distinct reasons. One, I really like that it splits an hour into equal thirds, because obviously not all tasks are going to only take 20 minutes to accomplish, and sometimes it's an hour or 2 or 3 hours. But even when it takes multiple hours to get through one particular project, I can still split those hours up into 20-minute blocks. And I just really like that it falls in line really easily within a full 60 minutes. The second reason, and even more importantly in some ways, is actually in order to reduce eye strain throughout a day. So funny enough, I had been using 20-minute blocks before my appointment with my optometrist last summer. But in that, I talked with him about how to reduce eye strain, and he recommended the 20-20-20 rule, which I had never heard of before, but it's extremely simple. Just every 20 minutes, just look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds at a time. And that just helps your eyes register something that is just further away than what your screen, your laptop, your phone, your iPad, whatever it is that's usually much closer to your face. It helps you refocus your eyes on something that's further away and also just not ton of like brightness and blue light and all that stuff. And so when I heard about that, I was like, wow, perfect. That falls really easily with what I'm currently doing. I already have a timer that's keeping me accountable to these 20-minute time blocks that I'm working within. Seems like a really easy way to just use that as a reminder to take a break from my screen, look at something that's 20 feet away, 20 seconds, refresh the eyes a little bit, and then feel a little bit better going into the next work block, work sprint that I'm going to. So yeah, just really simple way to break up an hour into smaller bits really evenly, and then also helps reduce eye strain at the same time, which I think is a really nice like dual benefit. Obviously, if you were to do something like this, you can use whatever increments of time that you want. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes, it could be 45 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be whatever. But I've just found for me in my experimentation in the last 2 years that 20 minutes has just worked out really nicely, breaks up that hour into even thirds, and also somehow kind of works perfectly with that 20-20-20 rule. So that's how I'm using it throughout a day. And I really like that because it helps kind of set, I think I maybe mentioned this in the intro, but it sets like little milestones, like little markers throughout a day to give yourself something to work towards. You know, instead of starting a day in the morning, you're like, okay, I got 8 hours to work. What am I gonna do? Instead, it's like, well, I've got these next 20 minutes to just answer emails. And then after that, the next 20 minutes will be just to make some progress on this video edit that I'm working on. And then the 20 minutes after that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just gives you like these small finish lines to work towards. And for me personally, I really, really appreciate that. It helps break projects into smaller chunks, even if it's like a giant project that you're working on. Instead of wondering like, where am I going to start on this thing? You can just assign different parts of that project to different 20-minute increments, and then mark your progress that way, which I really appreciate. It's also a really good way to just actually see where your time is going when you are working throughout a day. So more importantly now, the thing that I really love about this is the physical aspect of this timer. And I really do prefer this over using my phone or using a laptop or really any other digital device for 3 distinct reasons. The first being, it's not any of those things. It's not my phone. It's not another source of distraction. And yes, there is a certain level of discipline to not get distracted by your phone, but I think it's nice to be able to completely remove that as a possibility. By taking the timer functionality and removing that reliance on my phone for that and just transferring it to this instead, I just feel like I'm able to have one less reason to even interact with my phone during a workday, because I already have so many reasons to, that it feels really nice to just not have to have that phone and that potential distraction be another thing that I'm using throughout a day. The second reason is because I love the tangible, tactile nature of this thing. And I kind of liken it to writing with pen and paper. In the same way that you commit to memory things better when you're writing with pen and paper versus typing it out, I think I'm kind of committing myself to these different time blocks and these work sprints throughout a day better when I'm using this timer instead of my phone. You probably will be able to hear this a little bit, but like you can, pause right here with this like clicky button on the front, which is awesome. And then you have this dial on the side that you turn. And maybe you can hear that, but it's so satisfying. You turn this giant dial on the outside to set, 87 minutes, perfect, to set what time you are going to actually use, add, subtract time, whatever. And I think that movement is obviously unique to this device. I think that interaction helps commit what you are doing to memory much better. Phones are obviously, I don't even think I have mine near me right now, but it's all touch screen, it's all swiping and different gestures, and all those gestures mean thousands of different things. I feel like tapping on a phone and swiping and inputting with a touch screen has kind of lost all meaning to a certain extent, and you could do anything with that. So suddenly it's not as special, it's not as important to use that gesture anymore. But with this clicky button on the front and this wheel on the outside is entirely unique to this device. And with that, there is some kind of just, again, like physical interaction that I think commits what I am doing better than if I were to input it into a device that is super generic and can do thousands of different things. Lastly, I really like that this is always on as well. It's just a secondary screen that actually has a little, nope. I was gonna say it has a kickstand. It does not have a kickstand on the back. It was the battery compartment. It has just, because of the footprint of it, I can easily prop it up on my desk and I can just reference down to it at any point in time. Again, it doesn't have to be a phone screen. It doesn't have to be this other distracting screen that's on my desk. It's just this little guy that's keeping me accountable to the work that I'm doing. I can keep it up. It's always on. It's easy to reference. And I appreciate that it's like just a very low-tech digital screen that can keep me on whatever time block it is throughout the day without being a phone screen or a computer screen. So that's generally speaking how I am both implementing this in my workday and also why I prefer a physical timer. I really do think the physical nature of this is really key in all of this. I think it makes a huge difference. And again, just really love having something like this as my little accountability partner throughout a given workday to keep me on task and on time with the stuff that I'm doing. Lastly, I kind of want to just touch on why I'm doing any of this to begin with. And for me, it's really all about one clear goal. And it's that I firmly believe that structure equals freedom. We've talked about this on our podcast Rally Caps before, specifically within the context of creativity and self-employed artists, which I am, and being able to set boundaries and barriers for yourself to actually encourage freedom and thought and creation of things rather than restrict yourself. Something that I learned very early on in my career and my journey of being self-employed is that the luxury of having like all the time in the world to do whatever it is that you want is actually, I think, more of a trap than it is a benefit. I think when you go into that working for yourself without any like structure or barriers or anything to kind of keep you corralled, oftentimes work just goes to the wayside and you're working all hours of the day and things are getting pushed off and you're procrastinating things, and it's just really easy to fall into the spiral of like thinking that the freedom that you have is helping you when in reality it actually is harming you. And so I really think something as simple, yes, as this, as so simple and cheap and silly sometimes as it feels, it really helps provide that structure in a workday. when you're working for yourself too, you don't have other people around all the time to kind of be your accountability partner. And when that's the case, something like this can provide tons of accountability for you. I think that structure is actually going to ultimately give you your time back, because you're not wasting your time as much as you would without something that's kind of keeping you focused on any given task at hand. And that ultimately leads to less stress, more productivity, and kind of like I said earlier, those small finish lines that help you, I think, feel encouraged throughout a work day as well. You've like a little checklist that you can go through and just mark things off as you're going. And each of those 20-minute time blocks for me really serves as a great way to say like, okay, cool. I am, a third of the way done with the workday. I'm, 75% done with the workday, whatever it is. Those small finish lines really, I think, are encouraging in the long run and help each workday feel a little more manageable and a little less intimidating, I think, because not every day is going to be easy when you are self-employed, especially when you're doing something creative and all the work is so emotionally involved. It can be really tricky to wake up with the motivation to actually do anything. But if you start with 20 minutes at a time, I think that's a really good way to overcome some of those harder days. And then on your best days, you are just flying through stuff and feeling like a total productivity king. And it feels great. And I have only seen benefits from using something like this in my work. So if that has helped you at all, please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear how you maybe use a timer like this or some kind of like time management tool or whatever it is in your life to keep yourself accountable to the work that you are doing, and how you structure your work life. Whether you are self-employed or not, this is the kind of stuff that I'm just really fascinated with, and I'd love to hear how you are implementing stuff like that in your life as well. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next video.